I'd like to thank this video's sponsor, Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence for your business. Hello and welcome back to my art channel. If this is your first time coming across one of my videos, I'm a full-time freelance illustrator / comic artist / character designer, do all sorts of stuff, and in this channel I show you my process of the various projects that I'm working on. So in this video I decided to just do a catch-up type of voiceover where I tell you what I've been up to lately. I guess this is mostly relevant to my regular watchers who keep an eye on my projects and whatnot. And I filled this double-page sketchbook spread with just a bunch of doodles, some of them using pictures I found on Pinterest, like photos of fashion something, others maybe like 50% of them just randomly making things up. And I'll be showing a lot of long real-time chunks, which I think is nice to look at. So hope you enjoy watching that. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna tell you guys about what I've been up to lately, like I mentioned. So I cannot believe that it's almost the end of 2023. I really wanted to start publishing my comic this year. That was one of my big goals, and unfortunately, once again, another year goes by and I was not able to meet that goal, which is pretty unfortunate. But you know what, like, I can't focus on the negatives, because at least this time it's definitely going to happen shortly. It may be next year, but in reality I will most likely start releasing it in about a month, I want to say. I've been having a lot of, like, I'm being super cautious this time around because there are just so many things that go into, like, so many things to consider when it comes to releasing a comic, like figuring out how to release it exactly. Because I'm in a position where if I started doing this way back in the day, which actually I did when I was in high school and then in college, that was a way lower stakes type of situation in which I was doing a lot of other stuff and I was kind of doing my comic in my free time. And it was purely a hobby type of situation where I didn't really think about monetization, because at the time I didn't really need that much money to subsist off of while I was studying. And things have obviously changed a lot since then, and now I need to really take financials into account. And therefore, the release of the comic has been a little bit of a difficult question for me. Like, obviously, I have mentioned many times that I don't want the comic to be behind a paywall. I want it to be available for anybody to read if they just want to check it out, because I don't know, I think it's difficult to build an audience when there is a paywall. And since this is going to be a long running series, I figured I would take a kind of like a webcomic approach where it is free to read, and then hopefully people will want to purchase physical copies. But it's not that simple, because by not that simple, I mean there's still a lot of questions that come into mind when it comes to like the way that the release should take place. So I've been thinking about that a lot, like whether I should drop the whole prologue all at once when I'm done, just so people can read the whole prologue and then wait for the first chapter, or if I should wait till I finish the first chapter and drop them at the same time. I mean, those are all things, like, there are pros and cons to every approach, because a lot of webcomics do release one page at a time, with like a couple of pages per week being a typical schedule, I think. And I used to think that that's not what I'm going to do, but the more I think about the whole situation, the more I'm kind of starting to lean towards that approach, because it's the biggest reason for this is because one of the biggest difficulties for me initially with just working on webcomic in general back in the day was that I had a lot of trouble keeping up with any sort of schedule, and so I needed very, very much needed to have a backlog of pages that I can keep posting while I'm working way ahead of time. And this offset would greatly have helped back then, and I think I really need that now, because there's no way that I can rush to complete each page just in time for release. Like, that's just not how things are gonna work anymore at all. And that being said, one of the reasons why I decided to abandon the initial goal of releasing the prologue, say, all at once, and then the first chapter all at once, is because at the moment, I really have no way of knowing how long it will take me to complete an entire chapter, for instance, because it's getting back into working on a comic, maybe not full time, but pretty frequently on a daily basis almost, has really been a flood of memories back, and just this realization that I have forgotten how much work it takes to draw comics. It's a funny thing to say, because I have obviously drawn comics for long periods of time before, most notably the graphic novel that I was working on several years ago. It took me about 2 years or something, maybe 2.5 years to finish it. And throughout that whole time, that was my main project. So that's what I spent most of my time doing. So you'd think that I would remember that forever, how it went and how much work it took. But shockingly, because it's been maybe 5 years or maybe even longer since I finished it. Good God, that's disturbing. But yeah, so it's been a while since I finished it, and during the last 5 years, it's not like I haven't been working that much. It's just that I got so used to the rhythm of juggling different types of work back and forth, in which unfortunately in some ways actually drawing is maybe only 60% of what my job really entails, because a lot of it is planning, it's packing orders, it's making editing videos, doing voiceovers, obviously working on YouTube, so much, so many administrative tasks, photography, putting together my shop website and whatnot. You get the idea. There are just so many tasks that are not art related that I would spend sometimes days, maybe even a week, just catching up on those types of tasks without drawing at all. And most of the time, because my illustrative approach is not radically different from the way that I draw comics, I would say obviously I put in more time into illustrations, but not always. It really depends. For instance, when I'm doing character designs or something like that, even the finished polished ones, it's still not that far off from the way that I approach comics. So my point in bringing that up is that if I have to do a few of those, it's infinitely less work than actually doing several pages of a comic, because it's the same type of approach, but it ends up being just way less in quantity. So I will say that it has been a little bit of a rude awakening for me to realize how much time it actually takes to finish each page, because if you think about it, the way that I've been paneling so far, I have maybe on average 5 panels per page, maybe 4 to 6 panels per page. And it really adds up. 18 pages sounded like nothing to me, just because I've finished so many pages before. But since that was a long time ago, I have lost the ability to gauge how long it would take. So all in all, that being my point is that I've just been relearning the timing and how to schedule things and how to anticipate the completion better than I did going into this, because I thought it would take me way less time than I did. In fact, I had so many delusional thoughts about how long it would take that it's kind of laughable now. I initially wanted to complete my 18 pages of prologue during October, in which I had 2 conventions, so I was away from country for half the month, and I had a bunch of other stuff going on. I don't know how In my head, I thought it would have been even possible to do that, but hey, I mean, it's been a wake-up call. But that being said, I did want to tell you guys that I have made a ton of progress, and at this point I'm just almost done inking the entire prologue, and obviously the first 4 pages are totally complete, and then the next few are like in various stages of completion. So I am very close to finishing it, because once I do have a flatter helping me, so that actually takes a lot of time, gives me a lot of extra time, I should say. And how long it takes, like my next task basically is to figure out how long it actually takes for me to go from the flatted page to the complete page, which really shouldn't be that long. So hopefully that'll help me estimate better going forward as well. But anyways, yeah, I figured I should take this moment and tell you again that I have a website for the comic. There's nothing there yet except for a sign up for the mailing list. So if you would like to hear about the updates, and if you don't want to miss the release date for my comic, which should be soon, very soon, please sign up for the mailing list at gloamingvale.com, GLOAMINGVALE.com. I always want to spell that out because some people think it's a different word that precedes veil. But anyways, so yeah, I would really appreciate that. And I haven't sent any emails yet, but I should probably start doing that in about a month, or probably half a month prior to when I'm going to release some of the prologue. So stay tuned for that. And I'm just going to take a moment to tell you about this video sponsor, which is Squarespace. As a freelance illustrator, having a website that showcases my work is super important, but it's just another thing that takes up precious time in an already extremely busy schedule. Ever since I tried out Squarespace though, it actually made it way less daunting to keep up a website because of how easy it was to set it up in the first place and how quickly I can make updates whenever I have new work to add. To add new artwork to my portfolio, all I really need to do is just click edit and select the new images. It honestly takes like seconds, and the automatic image scaling feature takes care of everything for me, so I don't even need to worry about the size of the images. Everything looks super professional with minimal effort and time on my part. It's also super easy to link your shop to the site if you already have one, or build a shop directly in Squarespace under the Commerce tab. Another handy feature is that it's actually super easy to find and purchase a unique domain for your website by just looking it up directly in Squarespace under Settings, Domains. If you want to try it out for yourself and make a website portfolio of your own, you can head over to squarespace.com and sign up for a free trial. And once you're ready to launch your website, you can go to squarespace.com/cosmicspectrumart for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thanks so much, Squarespace, and now back to the video. So back to the video, I mentioned that I have the website up now. It's just the landing page, thanks to Squarespace, which is what I'm planning to use to host the webcomic. But yeah, as far as the release schedule goes, I will also mention here that I will most likely start releasing it much earlier on Patreon. So in a way, I'm just going to offset the dates of the release pages so that if you want to support me financially for working on to support the comic financially, essentially, you can sign up for my Patreon, where you will be able to get early access to the pages. But if you can't afford to, or just want to check it out, it will be available just a little bit later on. So I think that's currently my plan as for the release, so that it'll help take the edge off a little bit, just because of how much time it takes to produce pages. Obviously you can't afford to do that for that, like to spend that much time on it without getting any sort of compensation. So it's a delicate balance that I'm gonna have to figure out as time goes on. But in any case, speaking of that, I did reopen my shop, and you know, it was a little bit hard to adjust to that as well, since it was closed for about 6 months since I moved in May, and I did get used to not having to deal with the 20 degree, which was kind of nice because I got to focus a lot more on other aspects of my work. I did a lot more freelance over the summer and signed up for a bunch of conventions, and that was a lot of fun. And I am thinking of just doing conventions a little bit more frequently than I have been in the past few years. So next year, I already know that I'm for sure going to go to Emerald City Comic Con. So if any of you guys are going there, very excited to meet some of you there in person. And after that, I will most likely just apply for New York Comic Con to see if I can get in again. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing Lightbox or like if I'm going to apply for Lightbox again, because the timing is not great. I really don't like being away for so much of October, and because New York Comic Con and Lightbox Expo are both in October, makes it a little bit difficult because it's such a busy month of the year in general. So I'll decide about that later. Did not get into TCAF this year, the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. Unfortunately, it's one of my favorites, and it's local, so it would be nice to go, but yeah. Anyways, I'll keep you guys updated on my convention schedule, but I'm most likely not going to be doing more than like 3 probably at most, because that is already a lot for me to think about. And yeah, I also wanted to mention just how much easier it has been to run my shop now that I have a dedicated space for all my merchandise and all my packing materials and shipping materials and whatnot. I basically have this setup, this big table and a bunch of storage containers set up in the basement, and it's been absolutely amazing to just go down there, turn on the lights, and pack a bunch of orders in peace without having to spend like an hour collecting all the materials that I need in order to pack a set number of orders. That's how I used to have to do it when I lived in a small condo, because there was no space that I could dedicate to packing or like my shop. And so I had to find all these nooks and crannies around the condo so that I could hide all my packaging supplies and my stock. And it actually was pretty limiting because I had to stick to very small items because I just had no storage for bigger things, like the tote bags, which I'm very happy with, that are in my shop. But anyways, yeah, it's been a huge relief to be able to have everything in one place and just go down there and immediately start packing orders, which is great. And speaking of the shop, I've been thinking about, I think I mentioned this in my last video, where I've been wanting to put together a sketchbook, like a sketch collection art book. Because the last time I did something like that was honestly like, I'm trying to remember, probably 2010, which is crazy, a very long time ago. And I do think I personally really enjoy the sketch collections that I have from other artists, so I'm thinking of doing that. I was way too busy with working on the comic the last week to even get started on that, but it's starting to get a little bit tight because I really want to have it for Emerald City Comic Con, which is at the end of February, and it does not leave me that much time to get it together, but like to get it produced and whatnot and shipped over here. But I am hoping to get started on pulling that together fairly soon. But I've been obsessed with just trying to finish the prologue, which is correct. That is the correct thing to prioritize for me for sure, because that is definitely the most important thing for me at the moment. It's just been so long since I've been trying to get this started, and now that I finally have, I do find it much easier actually to work on it. It's way easier for me to work on something that is in the middle, especially physical drawing tasks. Like, it's a little bit different being in the middle of writing something because you can get stuck for sure. But when it comes to being in the middle of drawing something, it's not a problem, and I do get obsessive, and it's really annoying for me to leave tasks unfinished. So that is my first priority for sure, and hopefully I'll be able to get that done next week, which is a very what's the word for it? It's a very optimistic goal, as usual. I'm very bad at that. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but God, I will try. So I'll try to finish the prologue by the end of next week, and Christmas is just around the corner. One thing that I wanted to kind of tell you guys about, I do have somewhat of a tradition for myself to do a year-end review of just going quarterly. This is not business related, by the way. It's just life, like just overall life, things that I've committed to, things that I managed to accomplish, like how far I was able to push the needle forward, because I'm constantly trying to like make new habits in terms of all sorts of stuff not related to art. And most of the time my problem is that I will start trying to form too many new habits at the same time, and it's just way too hard to commit to all of them. So I gotta start doing things one at a time. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to carving out some time before the end of the year where I can just sit down and go over all of 2023 and all the things that I managed to accomplish, like what happened and whatnot. It's like this big overall assessment diary that I do. It's actually really fun to go back and read over the ones from before, like several years ago, where things were very different. And it is really nice to have a record of how much I managed to change my life over the years. It's actually crazy how much I have changed as a person and how much my productivity has gone up. Like, I know that sometimes sounds like a hollow thing to say. Like, I personally don't like too much of a focus on productivity, but of course it's all contextual, right? Because for me, the context of productivity is directly related to the things that I deem to be the most important, next to relationships, obviously, is just my work, like trying to get my comic off the ground, trying to accomplish something with that. And in that context, productivity is extremely important to me. And I really managed to come a very long way when it comes to that, because I am one of those people where I used to have trouble doing more than one task per day. Like, if I had an appointment, even if that appointment was like 1 hour long and it was very close by, my brain was so clogged with anxiety and worries and like depression and all that, that even just that one task was more like, it was too much for me. That's the only thing I could do. Like, I could only focus on that one thing, even if the rest of the 24 hours were free. So now it's completely different. I can actually switch tasks much more efficiently now, and I can get a lot of different stuff, different things finished throughout the day. And yeah, it's very slow progress, but it's nice to look back and to actually be able to quantify how much progress I have been able to make. So that's nice. And yeah, usually along with this end of year review, I will also do set a bunch of goals, like pretty normal activity probably for people, just setting goals and New Year's resolutions. So I always look forward to doing that. There's some other fun things that you can do, like make lists. Like, for instance, a list of, I don't know why my cat is she's just being very talkative in the background. I don't know what she wants from me. I've already fed her, given her water, given her pets. She's just sitting there and chirping, so I'm sorry about that. Anyways, yeah, so I really like making lists where I can go over and try to think of like 50 things that I really liked from this year. It could be anything, so there's no real like constraints into what kind of things. Just trying to go back through the year and remember the things that I really enjoyed, like moments, instances, obviously things like trips, things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of things to go over, and making a list like that is really great because, like I said, revisiting it later is so fun, and it just really feels nice to be able to see everything in a short list and go down the memory lane and whatnot. And so I'm going to try to do something like that, and we'll also make a list of 50 small things to do next year. Nothing crazy, like for instance being like, oh, finish volume 1 of my comic. That's kind of crazy. Even though I actually really want to do that next year, that's not a small thing for sure. It's probably going to take me a whole year if I do commit to that. So I'm thinking more like, I don't know, buy more plants or take better care of plants or just any number of small things like that. Yeah. Anywho, that was pretty much everything that's been on my mind lately. As far as my work is concerned and the year coming to a close. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to next year. I think it's finally going to be the one where I start working on my comic, and that is a whole beginning of a new adventure for sure. I remember for the last several years, it seemed like the end point that I was working towards was starting the comic, because it was just such a monumental goal and it took so long to get here. But now I have come to, really clue into the fact that starting the comic is what it is. It's just the start, and it is the start of a new chapter, start of a new journey. So that's very exciting. It's gonna have a lot of challenges for sure, and there are a lot of other things that are going on in my life that will be challenging most likely, but I feel like I'm ready to make the commitment to all the things that I want to do, and can't wait to get going. So yeah, one thing I also wanted to mention was that I have realized that I do, like, one of the things that I tend to get overwhelmed by again and again is trying to juggle the different projects that I have committed to, like freelance, having the shop, doing conventions, doing YouTube, and it is a lot. And some of you will probably know that is a lot if you do something similar to what I do, because even just making YouTube videos alone is a pretty big thing. So doing 2 videos per month is about the most I can manage at the moment. Of course, ideally I would like to make videos more often, but if any of you make videos, you will probably know that it's not a joke to commit to something like that, and it takes up a lot of time. And of course, my constant task is to have to prioritize and reprioritize things all the time in order to get things done without delays. And so I've kind of come to accept the fact that I can't reduce my commitments any more than I already have. I have accepted that I will have to do freelance sometimes now and again, and I will do all the other things, and that has honestly made me feel better. I think just accepting the fact that I have to juggle things all the time has been paradoxically easier for me to get everything done. So that's great. That's a big progress mentally for me, because this is something that I've been getting bogged down with very frequently throughout the years, like all the time. And so one thing though that I decided that I'm going to steer away from for the foreseeable future is the rabbit hole getting sucked into trying to make new merchandise. That's one of the things that I have a lot of trouble with, because that's where the FOMO really happens. Like if I go on Instagram, I see people making all the cool merchandise and the sticker sheets and whatnot. I love that stuff, and I really love making that kind of stuff. And a lot of people, a lot of artists' whole business model revolves around that. And in some ways, I have a little bit of envy, because I would love to do that. I think it would be a lot of fun. I don't think it would be enough for me, because I know that I want to prioritize my comic anyways. And unfortunately, I understand that doing something like that, like having a merchandise-focused Patreon, say, or just focusing on merchandise as your primary source of income, is a big commitment, and it takes a lot of time to plan everything out, especially when you're doing like a monthly type of thing, which is something that I really want to do. But unfortunately, at this point, I have accepted that I just can't do it, and I have committed to not getting sucked into it again like I tend to do all the time. So that's been a kind of a weight off, like a load off my chest, because every time I will just start rambling about how I want to do this and I want to do that, but then I can't because there's all these other things. And so for now, my biggest commitment is just getting the comic going, and then once that is in a sort of place where it's steady production, it has a steady output system that is very smooth and predictable, and I can predict the timing and estimations and all that. After that, maybe I will consider reintroducing a concept like a monthly Patreon tier that has a physical reward. I really want to do that in the future, but that's definitely something I have to put a pin in until I have the comic sorted out. So there you go. That's one of the biggest progress things I've made as of late. But yeah, that's about it. And here we are at the end of the video. So thank you guys for watching, and I will keep you updated in the next one. Bye-bye.